What do you think of the tea? That's starting the session, every session with a tea. How does that feel?
I enjoy it. Well, just
Yeah.
I enjoy your company, so you know
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun to chat, and I don't know. I get the opportunity to often like nerd out, and
Yeah.
talk about our work, and you know, I never get to go this deep and use the lexicon that I would with you with
Yeah.
somebody else that I'm serving in there. You kind of have to meet people where they are, Use the verbiage that most resonates with them.
Yeah.
And that is palatable. And sometimes you can kind of like test the waters, and people like ask like, what are you doing? Like, what are you searching for, or what are you looking for? And you can kind of, I can throw an answer out there that's like borderline out there.
Yeah.
and see how they respond. Get a gauge of whether or not they're interested in actually learning more.
Yeah.
Or if they're just like lip service.
I find myself doing heavy amounts of metaphors. I find metaphors are the fastest way to get that core concept across. It also helps in my own learning process. And it also helps them just understand really quick.
Sure.
Just like, oh, the freeway's tight, so the liquid can't get through. And then like people can instantly, I think that's why we use metaphors, because it allows us to get complex ideas across in a pretty quick and efficient manner.
For sure. Yeah. And then it's even more of an art on the part of a practitioner to use a metaphor that will speak to the person that you're communicating with.
Yeah. What's one of your go-to metaphors?
I talk a lot about the communication between the brain and the body. And so a lot of times whenever I'm communicating with a parent about the struggles that their child is going through, and I just communicate it like on a super elementary level, because they don't really need any more than that, just about how the brain talks to the rest of the body, and then the body sends signals back to the rest of the brain.
Yeah.
Having these tension patterns stored in our physiology, our neurospinal system, affects the ability for the brain to talk to the rest of the body.
Yeah.
So that's a go-to.
That's a good one, talking that communication point.
Yeah. Another one I like to use is to help people distinguish between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is, fight or flight. Everybody understands that. Parasympathetic, rest and digest. People understand that as well. And the need to be able to bounce back and forth between the two when the timing is appropriate. But you shouldn't feel like you're in fight or flight whenever you're sitting in the comfort of your own home. And so I think of like sympathetic as gas pedal and parasympathetic as brake pedal. You don't want your gas pedal, your stress stuck on all the time. And that's what these tension patterns, distortions, subluxations can do.
Yeah, and even on that note, even how people live their lives can be like a behavioral subluxation or a behavioral pattern. I was just like, like everything you're doing, like sticks. I mean, that's I think that's what my work has been starting to really focus on is people get stuck in their patterns, and their patterns are constantly taking them into the sympathetic. It's like, constantly thinking about a breakup or constantly thinking about work. Oh, and then they do a really intense physical activity and then doom scroll and then eat really like sugary foods. And you just start to be like, oh, everything this person is doing is, and they're also like, let's say they're in a job they hate. It's like everything they're doing is sympathetically dominating them.
Sure.
And so no wonder they can't recover. And so no wonder there's patterns in the body. It's just there's this reflection between the mind and the body and the habits that one lives in.
Of course. Yeah. They're inseparable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to interrupt a pattern as often as possible. If somebody has like a sickness and disease kind of mindset that they live in, or maybe a negative, pessimistic mindset, glass half empty kind of, mindset always, just throwing little comments to not even a conversation starter. I don't really want to start a conversation. I just want to throw something in there, a response that is kind of out of the ordinary for them, to make them just kind of pause and think, like, yeah, actually, my chiropractor said this, and that was interesting the way that he put this, and so I try to do that as often as possible.
There's got to be one that kind of pops out in your head when you think about this, one like a phrase or thing that you were able to inject that helped someone.
Well, one in in conversation with people call, say chiropractors aren't real doctors. It's like, okay, well, I can say, well, medical doctors have an extremely high rate of malpractice, and medical malpractice that happens every year. So I'm totally fine to not be looped in with them, and then just move right along.
Oh, okay.
I like to just kind of like, oh, well, maybe he doesn't actually want to be a doctor. Maybe what he's bringing to the table is a completely different, a different foundation than what the medical paradigm has to offer, which it totally is.
Well, I think you nailed on the head when you talk about paradigm, and I find that that's what I'm as you said, you say I don't want to be roped in with those guys. I find that I'm like helping people get out of what I like to call curative mind frame. A curative mind frame is this: there's one cause, there's one symptom, and there's one solution. Like that kind of narrow thing. And we see this in ads all the time. It's just like, this is going to take care of your inflammation, or this is going to,
Sure.
You've got congestion, and this will take, Mucinex, get rid of it. Everything is this, you have one symptom, one cause, one solution.
Yes.
But in reality, there's multiple causes.
Right.
There's multiple solutions, and there's a lot of nuance in how a solution is executed. There's a lot of nuance in finding what works for you. So something that works for one person may not work for something else. So
absolutely,
the ability to curify it. It's like there's not a cure. We're exploring to find what's going on with a person, and we're exploring to find what works for them.
Sure.
Because the thing that works for this person may not work for this person. And when we come from that curative mind, we've all come from that curative mind frame.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, oh yeah, the ad said we're going to do it. It's going to be fast and cheap and easy. And what I help people with is like, no, this is about actually helping you solve your problem, which oftentimes is not fast, it's not cheap, and it's not easy. But having someone to go along that pathway, there's this liberation to understanding the cost of something. Because when we get caught in the curative mindset, we wonder and we get frustrated and lose hope of why all these things aren't working. And when we draw people into that, there's this sense of relief. You're just like, oh, this is hard, and that's okay. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. And chiropractors are no different in a lot of regard, because hammer only sees a nail.
Yeah.
And so a lot of chiropractors will be like, oh, well, you're experiencing this, it's because you're subluxated. And so, the subluxation, the distortion, is that there are, like you mentioned earlier, it's not just, I don't think of it as only pertaining to even your neurospinal system being subluxated. Like you could have a thought pattern that's subluxated, a belief. And there are many subluxations within chiropractic, and so it's like there are the way that somebody presents themselves to you is multifaceted. What they have gone through, the life that they've lived leading up to this, it's so nuanced. It's not like, oh, heartburn, you need this. Oh, anxiety, you need this. It's like, that is so narrow, viewing it through a very, very narrow lens. And in reality, it could have been a cascade of effects starting with prenatal stress. Stress in the mother and father, the household, how prior to even conception. And then conception happens, and then the mother's in a stressful environment. And there's even plenty of research now that shows how prenatal stress can have an effect on the child.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a concept that people have been, chiropractors in particular, have been familiar with quite some time. And the research is coming along and backing that up. And then You look at the increase of birth interventions, and then the increase in pediatric disease, chronic disease, and maybe it started with a traction spinal cord injury through vacuum or forceps delivery, or cesarean, a non-honoring rough cesarean, or just the doctor being aggressive and yanking on that child's head, or just even a malposition through the birth canal. There's a million different ways that can stress out a life coming into this world, and then they have a trickle effect, and then they have their own very nuanced and layered personal life, that everybody's their own sovereign being, and the way that they achieve health is going to be very individualized.
And even what you're I'm hearing is just, and I've seen this as well, is just fast, rough care. And we'll roughly call it care. Sure. Literally roughly call it care. Yeah. Is that when we get into different spaces where people are like, hey, we're going to actually slow this down. Like, when you're working with people, like that's what I noticed when I was working with you, like how much you're checking, you're tuning in, you're like getting those, like, okay, what is the body telling me?
Sure.
And I find that's so important with, like, I feel both our works is that getting that tuning in and hearing the body, as opposed to like, we just need to get this done. Well, that is, you've just like the forceps and all those other things, like you see how many issues get from just forcing things. And now people are coming in and they need actual care, meaning like someone who cares and is willing to take the time and listen and give the space necessary to really just hear and experience.
Agreed. Yeah. And I would like to clarify something, because I certainly don't want to demonize people that have very fast adjustments, because there are some incredibly top-notch chiropractors where you are in and out in 90 seconds. But they are super laser focused. Their philosophy and approach is a little bit different, but they are, it's not like, oh, how is the game, as they're pushing buttons, along their spine, talking about how the weekend was, or maybe they're hungover from the night before, or whatever it might be. It's just so checked out and just adjusting whatever. That's in one camp, but then the camp that I'm talking about is like, they are in there, laser focused in 90 seconds, picking 3 areas, maybe even less, and adjusting those just very few areas, and then allowing the life force to be spread through the system and let your body integrate that. And like, I like to bring this up to people. I used to have great insurance back home, and I could go get a $5 adjustment at this clinic, and I did, and I always felt better, but it was the kind of not tuned in, not dialed in care at all. But I would pay out of my pocket $65 to go to this one doc. It was a 90-second adjustment, and he was top notch, just the absolute incredible at delivering. But that was his philosophy, his approach, and I've just chosen to go a different way and take a little bit more time with people.
And it also, I feel like your description actually like proves the point even more. It's like, it's about dialed in. So it's not necessarily the amount of time necessary, but it was just like how focused, because that 90-second person probably has spent years honing his craft in order to like be able to do it in 90 seconds. He may not even have been doing it 90 seconds in the beginning.
Right.
Is like anyone who is tuned in and high. I think that's more of the point I'm trying to make, is like someone who's tuned in is going to be able to get to that place. Like that's I think the example of I think the Picasso example I like. Someone came in, and like Picasso was in a cafe, and he was making a little drawing, and they asked him how much. And he's like, $1 million. And they're like, but that took you like 30 seconds to make. But he's just like, well, it took me the decades and years it took to build this skill.
Right.
Like, so it looks fast.
Yep.
But it's not fast.
Absolutely.
And so understanding like who's tuned in and who's not tuned in is like a huge point. It's just, like,
huge.
And as you said, like they're just like the example of they just pulled it out real roughly. So it's like rough care is just like they're trying to get to a point. They're rushing.
Yep.
They're not tuned in. They're not fully dialed in that way.
Oh yeah.
and then creating this dialed experience where people like get you. And as you said with yours, is like you kind of like a little bit of that longer feel.
Sure.
It has a little bit more. What kind of led you to lean into more of that style as you?
I think it was experiencing it for myself, because all my chiropractic experience had been back home where I'm from in Missouri. And so that was just all that I had been exposed to. And then moving out here, prior to even attending chiropractic school, receiving care from a practitioner who was just on another level as far as her depth of attention, her awareness, and how just tuned in she was. And she encouraged me to go learn from the guy that she learned from. And so I did. And then going and learning underneath him and receiving care from underneath him. And it's just like I was hooked right away. And then I kept going back, and I still keep going back. And I've attended some of his classes several times and will continue, because it's just like there will never be a ceiling, if that makes sense. Like there's always continual room for growth and continual depth of awareness, and so might as well continue to learn.
Yeah, I just want to continue on like the awareness piece of the tuned in piece. Is, as you said, is like this depth of when you start to build awareness, you're just like, oh, I feel this, and there's a certain point, like I know in my experience with my myofascial work, it's just you're just like, oh, it's a skill. You build it, you grow it, and there's always these different levels of being able to recognize what the body is telling you. Being able to tune in is just like, oh, the fascia is moving this way, or I can feel the body moving this way, or this is the cue that is going, or the energy shifts in this way, or I've even had moments where my breath changes, and that's a cue. Like starting to understand and be aware of all the cues, all the different ways our physiology interacts with one another, and the feeling under my hands. Because it's not just the feeling under my hands, and you probably understand this as well. Like it's not just what you're feeling in your hands. Like you can feel an energy shift. You can sometimes you're just like, oh, I'm just feeling drawn to this part of the body, and following that is what we call intuition. I think it's just learning to interpret all the different ways that our brain is talking to us. That's not
absolutely,
words. Yeah.
absolutely, and that takes a quieting, and it's actually like it's far less about what I'm feeling under my hands. And it's more about what I'm feeling here. But I can scan with my hands, and it's like, oh yeah, this is connected to this, is connected to, it's all so interconnected, and you have so many countless nerve receptors on your fingertips. Well, the nervous system is this giant interconnected highway, right? Many highways leading back to the main source, the spinal cord, up to the brain. And so like I feel it in my solar plexus whenever I am in the right area, whenever I'm being guided to an area. Like it's more like a metal detector with my hands being out there scanning, and then it's here. That's the resonator. That's where I feel when I know I'm in the right spot. And then of course I'd use my educated mind to check in, make sure I'm on track, make sure my intuition is not floating out there, and it's not, but it's always right. Yeah. It's always right. And I can feel in this area, I feel like, okay, this is where I'm being called to. We'll do a little motion palpation. Okay, yes, there is muscle inflammation. There is joint restriction. There is all of the textbook educated answers that some chiropractors, that's all they're looking for. Like I got to check the boxes of taut and tender fibers, edema, joint restriction, lateral flexion rotation restriction, whatever it might be, whatever those indicators are. You can use those as like to just keep your intuition in check.
Love that. Yeah. Kind of the back and forth. There's different layers, and the way the layers bounce off with another. It's just, oh, I feel this energetically in my body, and my fingers feel this. It's like, oh, the fascia is hard, and I think that comes from just getting your hands on so many bodies. Oh yeah. Is you've eventually just like, this is not the way this should feel. Right. Like there's just certain like baselines that is learned of like, oh, that's not how that shoulder should feel. That's
Right.
not how that attachment should feel. Oh, this is how that attachment should feel. So it's just like, oh, like, it's like, I don't know what that, like, there's times, like, especially in the organ, sometimes I was working on someone where it was just like, that does not feel like a regular fascial line.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's something adhesed in an unhealthy way. So being able to feel those things that are not as they should be. Like, oh, that's not flowing the right way. It's just like, that subluxer, those different things in this way. Because it's out of place, we can feel it's out of place.
Right.
And then being able to guide it to where it needs to go.
Yeah, guided to where it needs to go. And that's one aspect of the adjustment, but it's like, you know, as we were speaking about just a moment ago, like the nervous system permeates every single structure, right? And so it's literal energy. Like you can even remove the woo out of it, and it's like, well, it's actual energy because there's electrical connectivity coming from your brain into your spinal cord, out to your peripheral nerves, to every single tissue in your body. And so it should be going back and forth to the brain, from the brain to the body, back and forth. This big communication highway. Oh yeah. And sometimes the areas get distorted. For instance, if I was to sit like this all the time, cutting off my energy centers, it's not actually able to travel in the way that it's designed to travel. So then you have this stagnated energy, and you can get a restriction of energy. You can which can then turn into a joint restriction. So then you have like this energy that is like in this area that it's wanting to travel, but it's not able to travel because you have a stagnated energy, stored potential energy. So yes, it's sometimes about physically moving a bone from this position to this position, and sometimes it's about freeing up a joint that's not moving properly. But the main reason we're even doing that is to get that stored potential energy that is in that neurospinal system to release and to travel throughout the system, so it's a global adjustment.
Yeah, and that, I love how you say stored energy, is that's what's happening in the fascia. Like the fascia around the joints is the tissue, just like a rubber band, gets tight.
Oh yeah.
And so that becomes stored energy, and so when the fascia releases, you know, through the adjustment or a myofascial release, is that tissue, that energy goes from potential to kinetic, meaning it gets released out of the body.
Absolutely.
So it's no longer holding it, it's no longer cutting off fluid flow.
Yes.
Because that's the huge thing, is just like stagnation. Okay, what does stagnated mean? Like, oh, stuff is stuck.
Right.
The fluid isn't flowing. And because the fluid isn't flowing, nerves aren't getting what they need. All the other tissues and cells are not getting what, and they're sitting in their own filth. They're sitting in their own waste products.
Right.
So then not only is it not getting what it needs, it's also becoming toxic.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, but again, two different camps. You didn't study what I studied. I didn't study what you studied.
Yeah.
But they're all like working towards a similar goal. In mind. Yeah.
Well, it's like we're, and I think that's the beauty of the human spirit in working with people is I've been working on people, and I've been like, their spine's out of place. They need an adjustment. Like there's places where there's overlap, and there's places where like, oh, these things would work. Like, you need this at this moment.
Yep.
Or you need this at this moment. And then also conjoining things. That's why I've seen stuff gets really powerful. It's like, hey, if you do both of these, it's like, you know, it's the wind up and the things. Yeah. It's the combo, you know, the boom, boom. You're like, you could do one and you'll get a certain amount of benefit, but combining things, it's
catalyst.
It's catalyst. Yeah, man. That's what I found to be so powerful. You know, it's for example, if somebody wants to just work out but doesn't want to have a good diet, they're not going to get the strength or the muscle gains that they're looking for.
Right.
So it's just like working out needs diet. You know, I think that's just true for what we do as well. It's just like, hey, you can come get like one type, you can get chiropractic or myofascial, but if you're not switching your diet or looking at your relationships. And I think that's the thing of like when we start to shift from curative to holistic, is it's like, okay, what are all the pieces?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we're going to help you get the real results that you want, it's plugging all the things together.
100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like to tell people, like, you can't adjust yourself out of bad habits. If you're eating like crap, if you have toxic relationships, if you're not caring about what you're putting in your body, both like in your mouth and then also your mind with your scrolling or what you're consuming, even through television or reading or not reading, you know, whatever it might be, chiropractic is just a piece of the puzzle. It's, there are so many tools out there, and I just so happen to think that the one that I chose to do is the most powerful and potent tool because that's what I believe I'm made to do. And so that's why I feel magnetically drawn to it, and I see the potency, and so that's why I chose to do it. Yeah. But there are so many different tools out there, and that's kind of the beauty of life, I suppose.
Yeah. That is the beauty of life, my friend, and getting people results.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, that was an awesome first tea time.
Thanks, bro.
And yeah, if you guys love what we do, come check us out. And